In a previous training, we noted that there are two kinds of faith systems: worldview systems and belief systems. In this training, we will be focusing on the foundational worldview systems. As was noted before, there are four basic worldviews. These include theism, naturalism, animism, and Far Eastern thought. By way of review, we noted that there are numerous belief systems built on each worldview, and each one answers the three essential questions exactly the same as its worldview parent. Theistic belief systems include such religions as Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Mormonism, and Jehovah's Witnesses. Naturalism contains such belief systems as secular humanism, atheism, Marxism, positivism, and postmodernism. Belief systems associated with animism include Wicca, astrology, voodoo, and Japanese Shinto. Finally, belief systems associated with Far Eastern thought include Hinduism, Buddhism, Hare Krishna, and Taoism. We will now look more specifically at the four worldview categories. With each one, we will examine several components. We will give a definition of each and explain its basic beliefs. We will look at how they answer the three worldview questions, and we will finally explore some of the major implications of each system. The first worldview system we will examine is naturalism. Naturalism is the belief that the only thing which exists is the material universe. Naturalists believe there is no God, and there is nothing outside of the material universe. If we were to draw a graphic of naturalism, it would look something like this. The material universe is all there is. To more fully understand naturalism, we need to see how it answers the three worldview questions. Who is God? What is a human being? And what is the ultimate people can get out of life? That is, what is salvation? While we will not be specifically discussing Christian beliefs here, just for the purposes of comparison, we will put naturalism's answers side by side with the way our Christian faith answers them. Regarding who is God, naturalism basically says there is no God. The only thing which exists is the natural universe, which is evolving and eternal. For the question, what is a human being? Naturalism answers that humans are nothing more than complex biological machines. We are simply animal creatures which have evolved the largest and most complex brain of any in the animal kingdom. To answer the question, what is the ultimate one can achieve in this life? Naturalism simply asserts that it is to achieve one's highest potential or maximum personal fulfillment. Since there is no such thing as a transcendent reality, this is the most anyone could ever hope for. And the means for achieving this goal is to simply do the things which one believes will help them achieve this goal. There are three major implications for belief in naturalism. First, there is no such thing as an objective right or wrong, good or evil. Since any kind of objective morality would require a transcendent lawgiver, this is not considered a possibility. All morality is considered subjective and relative. Another implication is that when a culture creates values and norms, they are strictly functional elements. The basis for making a judgment in this area relates to what will best facilitate the survival of the species. A third implication is that when conditions or situations change, there is no compelling reason why the cultural elements can't also be changed. Again, this relates to the fact that there is no such thing as an objective basis for morality. The next worldview category is animism. Animism is the belief that the universe is populated by many spirit beings. Animists believe that some of these spirits inhabit material objects such as trees and rocks. Some of them are heavenly objects like the sky, sun, moon, and stars. Some of them inhabit animal creatures, and others are the spirits of people who have died. Animists also tend to believe that humans interact with the various spirit beings using prayers and offerings to placate them or win their goodwill. For animists, the universe is understood to be a single entity which is divided into two parts, the material world and the spirit world. These two parts operate in a symbiotic relationship with one another. What happens in one side affects what happens in the other part, and vice versa. While there are people who claim to be animists in all parts of the world, the more pure practices tend to be concentrated in more primitive societies. A graphic of animism would look like this picture. There is a single universe which is divided into a material and a spiritual part, with what happens in one part affecting what happens in the other. Once again, to get the full scope of animistic beliefs, we need to see how it answers the three worldview questions. Regarding who is God, animists believe that there are many spirit beings in the spirit world which interact with the beings in the material world in a symbiotic relationship. To answer the question, what is a human being? Animists believe that humans are spiritual beings which, during this life, are housed in a physical body and live in the material part of the universe. But upon physical death, they will become a spirit and live in the spirit world. As for the animistic belief about the ultimate one can achieve in this life, they believe that the ultimate is to understand the operation of the spirit world and use that knowledge to have a good life in one's current existence. This is achieved by doing what is necessary to live in harmony with the spirits. There are several implications of this kind of worldview belief. First, they believe that the world and life in general are not moving toward a higher destination. There exists a sort of eternal present. As such, the tendency is to live simply one day at a time and accept things the way they are. A second implication is that any time something bad happens, it is the result of some spirit being having been offended. As such, the solution to the problem is always to simply discover what spirit has been offended and offer prayers and offerings to appease the offense. A third implication is that there is no inner drive to strive for higher levels of achievement. Since all problems are caused by offended spirits, seeking to appease that offense is the only solution that is considered. A fourth implication is that whenever alternative solutions to problems are contemplated, it is generally due to the influence of some other worldview beliefs that have somehow come into contact with the animistic beliefs. We refer to the third worldview system as Far Eastern thought. We call it this because the belief systems which make up this worldview originated and are most prominent in the Far East. Far Eastern thought tends to be the most difficult of the worldviews for Westerners to understand, as it is so radically different than those we associate with the West. This worldview is characterized by two important concepts. The first is pantheism. Far Eastern thought belief does not distinguish between the secular and the divine. One of the more common ways this is expressed is in the saying, "Everything is God and God is everything." We must keep in mind, though, when using this expression, that the concept of God here is also not personal. The second concept which is central to Far Eastern thought is monism. This is the belief that all of reality is composed of and reducible to a single substance. In this case, that substance is the impersonal life force. They believe that everything in every part of existence is made up of that substance. As such, everything that exists is merely a different form of the same basic material. The basic idea is that the main body of the impersonal life force is all together, but parts of it have spun off of the main body and have moved far enough away so that it no longer appears to reflect actual reality. The impersonal life force is actually immaterial and impersonal. But the part that is spun off makes up what we know to be the material universe, which appears to be material and personal. Those parts which have spun off then are working their way back to try and rejoin the main body. They do this by many successive reincarnations based on the principle of karma. As such, the material universe does not represent ultimate reality. Ultimate reality is impersonal and immaterial, while the material universe is personal and material. As such, the material universe is illusory. That is not illusory in the sense that it does not exist, but in the sense that what we see and experience does not reflect actual reality. This picture is a graphic representation of what the Far Eastern thought worldview would look like. In order to get a more complete sense of the Far Eastern thought worldview, let's look at how it answers the three worldview questions. Its understanding of ultimate reality is that it is impersonal, pantheistic, and monistic. As such, the material universe, personality, and individuality are all illusions. Its answer to the question, what is a human being, is that a human is merely a piece of the impersonal life force which has progressed through many material reincarnations and reached the human level on its journey to regain oneness with the main body of the impersonal life force. As for salvation, the ultimate that can be achieved in this life, Far Eastern thought believes that the most important thing that can be gained is liberation from the suffering which exists in the material universe. This is done by continually living rightly in order to gain good karma and ultimately remerge with the main body of the impersonal life force. There are a few significant implications of the Far Eastern thought worldview. First, a person is born into his or her proper place in life. One should not then seek to achieve anything beyond that station in life. To get to a different stage requires reincarnation to a new one in the next life. A second implication is that nothing we experience in this life is an expression of ultimate reality. As such, there is no point in struggling to move outside of one's own proper place in life. A third implication is that the primary impact of Far Eastern thought on culture is to promote a type of pacifism that encourages people to be content in their life situation. Again, a new stage in life requires reincarnation into it. The fourth worldview system we will deal with is theism. This one will be the easiest for Christians to understand because our Christian faith is based on this worldview. Theism is the belief that there is an objectively real, infinite, and transcendent God who is responsible for creating the material universe and is also responsible for sustaining its existence. Generally speaking, theistic belief systems have some kind of revelation as their primary authority source. Theism can be depicted graphically like the picture seen here. You can see that there exists a larger spiritual reality where God exists. God created the material universe and communicates His will and His ways to it. Depending on the beliefs of particular belief systems, humans may or may not be able to communicate back to God. Also, most theistic systems have some understanding of a place that is separated from God, generally referred to as hell. It is important at this point to point out that while the Christian faith and theism are the same at their core, they are not identical. There are additional beliefs which define more precisely the beliefs of Christianity. To more fully define theism, let's look at how it answers the three worldview questions. Theism deals with the question of ultimate reality by its belief that there is an infinite and transcendent God who exists outside of the material universe. This God is responsible for creating and sustaining the material universe. Theism deals with the question, what is a human being, by asserting that humans are special creations of God whose essence is spirit. For theists, the ultimate one can achieve in this life is to please God to the point of being allowed into heaven at physical death. The means for accomplishing this is to do whatever has been revealed by God to accomplish that goal. There are several important implications to a theistic worldview. First, the impact of this kind of belief on culture tends to be both moral and positive, but at the same time, legalistic. It is considered moral because following it is believed to reflect the will of God. It is positive for the same reason and is reflected in the fact that following God's will leads to the result God desires. The reason most theistic belief systems are legalistic is because they tend to define morality based on laws God has revealed. Most believe that by legalistically following those laws, one is able to please God. Biblical Christianity is an exception to that last thought. A second implication is that it acknowledges both spiritual and physical elements to reality which are purposeful. The purpose is, obviously, to accomplish God's will. The third implication is that it is a good thing to struggle against the moral wrongs in the world. The primary belief is that God has revealed right morality, and it is the duty of believers to promote that in the culture. The final implication is that it claims to receive direction from God, who is good and wants His followers to be good. As such, believers should conform their lives to the revelation He has given. There is one more category that we need to look at. This particular one is not a worldview category per se, but we need to be aware of it because there are numerous belief systems that fall into this group. This category is called hybrids. A hybrid is an attempt to combine essential elements from two or more worldview systems into a single system. You will recall that every worldview literally contradicts every other worldview. That is because each worldview system answers the three worldview questions in an exclusive and unique way. For instance, God cannot exist and not exist at the same time. God can't be personal and impersonal at the same time. A human being can't be a created being and a naturally evolved creature at the same time. Every hybrid, as they pull in beliefs from more than one worldview, create a situation where the belief system must hold contradictory beliefs of that magnitude. As such, every one contains irreconcilable internal contradictions. A graphic depiction of a hybrid system would look something like this. It draws beliefs from more than one worldview system. There are numerous hybrid systems. Some of the more prominent include such beliefs as Baha'i, Unitarian Universalism, Scientology, and New Age. As we have seen, there are four foundational worldview systems: naturalism, animism, Far Eastern thought, and theism. When we understand what these systems are and what makes them up, we have a means of comparing them side by side. That is because we get their definitions by all of them answering the same three questions. This also provides us a way to analyze them for truth.